I'm Jenny Fern and welcome to my library. I am a chaotic neutral mechanical engineer who's really into permaculture and wants to talk about books. So let's talk about books. Today I have a bit of a what if scenario, a year that could have been. I am going through the TBRs that I set before myself this year and sharing the books that I did not read that were on those TBRs. So the first video that I did that was a TBR video was the Buzzwordathon TBR. And I was using that prompt list to help guide my January reading. And I had some really wonderful books selected. It was a great way to start the year. But I selected several books for some of the prompts. And I also just flat out did not complete the Buzzwordathon TBR. I definitely had some full prompts that I didn't tackle. But I wanted to go through the books that did not make it from that TBR, my second TBR video of the year, my Depression era TBR, and then we'll close it off with my current TBR. And obviously, we still have some time left in the month. Hey, can we stop running into the door? My cats are playing with each other through the bottom of the door. And so there's like slamming. He's being restrained. It is the end of November. December is just around the corner. It starts in a couple days. So I thought I might as well start on some of my wrap-up materials because it is going to be a busy month in December going through everything that I read this year and my favorite books for this year and all of that. So please, if you're interested in seeing all of that, consider subscribing now. I've given him food, so hopefully he stops. First book that I did not read that was on my TBR is The Loved One by Evelyn Waugh. I've always wanted to read this book. I've owned this book for a long time, and I just didn't get to it. It's so short. This is definitely going on my I would like to have read this in 2024, so I'm going to try to read it in 2025 TBR, which I guess is what I will be calling my first TBR of 2025. The next is Abigail Adams, An American Woman. I can't say that I'm feeling very called to this right now. I don't know. I can kind of see myself getting interested in this. I'm like a little bit in a history vibe right now, but I'm not really like feeling a pressure to have read this. The next book is Inheritors of Earth by Gordon Eklund and Paul Anderson. And I've been exploring graphic design recently and like trying to redesign some book covers and stuff. Just gotta say I love this design. I think it's very cool. I'm gonna put this on a not necessary, but would be interested. With the Buzzwordathon TBR, I had several options for each prompt, and that was actually very helpful for me. I also really intended to read The Symbiotic Planet by Lynn Margulis, and I think this may have ended up as like a desire later in the year as well. This is gonna be on my 2025 TBR. Oh my goodness! Next is Ray Bradbury's Long After Midnight, which are 22 hauntings and celebrations. I also have to say the artwork on this is really stunning. Really stunning. Anyway, I think I would actually like to have this on my list. I would like to read some more Ray Bradbury, and this is the last Ray Bradbury that I own that I have not read. And so if I can tackle this one, then I have an excuse to buy other ones, because there are some like really classic Ray Bradbury books that I don't own and I haven't read, and I would love to get to them. So I should tackle this at the beginning of 2025. Then I have The Shining I think this would be a good audiobook, if I'm being completely honest. And I could imagine reading this fairly soon. But I don't know if this is like a need. So I'm gonna put this on the maybe, the want. Next is something I have already unhauled. It was very briefly like in my home as like a book that I was intending to read for maybe like a couple weeks, and then I put it back into my little free library zone. That is The Scent of Jasmine by Jude Devereaux. And this is just not my thing at all. I thought maybe I could get outside of my comfort zone and have a little bit of fun, but I found it exceedingly boring. I did try to read it, and I did not enjoy myself. So this has gone back into the rotation for the little free library. So the next book is Hitler's Niece, and I have officially unhauled this book. I don't own it anymore. I think it's actually been picked up by somebody from my little free library, so I can't even hold it up. But yeah, I decided to not have that book anymore. All in Darkest Children by Alherd Bakarovic. And I am so interested in reading this. It sounds really so up my alley. So this is going on my 2025 TBR. I really, really wanted to read this year. That's Silent World by Jacques Cousteau. I just really think I should read this. I'm gonna put it on my 2025 TBR. I haven't read an ocean book this whole year, I think. It's funny, there are things that I really love and I'm really passionate about that I just didn't make enough time or space for this year. And so I'd like to do some more reading on things that I care about. I did start reading this. I got to page 15. So I gave it a shot. I was enjoying myself. I don't know, sometimes you get kind of snagged on a book where it doesn't go as you expect, it doesn't finish quickly, and you're just kind of like moved on at some point. So I'd like to read this again. Then we have my second TBR of the year, and this was all about trying to create a TBR after the Buzzwordathon TBR, because I found the Buzzwordathon TBR so helpful in not getting like stuck on knowing what to read next. Having a TBR that's smaller than my whole big wall of books was really helpful, but I wasn't quite sure how to do it as a really entrenched mood reader. I just am such a mood reader. The Buzzwordathon TBR was so helpful. It only lasted for a period of time, so I was trying to do a similar thing, pick books that I was excited about. I had just done some thrift store hauls, so I wanted to read some of those books that I was really excited about. So that's what this came from. The first book that I have is Stellar, which is a collection of short novels, and it's 3 short novels. I'm not feeling like I need to have read this year. I'm feeling like this is something that I can keep on my shelf for a little longer, and that I'm okay with that. So I'm gonna put this in the I don't need to read this in 2025. I'm feeling a very similar way about this book, and that's A Zoo in My Luggage by Gerald Durrell. I feel like I've called him Jared before. His name is Gerald. So I've definitely been interested in this off and on, but at the current moment I'm just feeling like I don't need to read this right now, and that it can wait for me for some time in the future when I'm really feeling like I should be reading it. I was interested in reading this because I bought a zoo last year, and I just felt like, oh, maybe I'm interested in zoos, and I don't think I am. So who knows, maybe when I read this I'll be interested in zoos again. Then we have a book by one of my favorite middle grade authors. That's Sharon Creech, and the book is Replay. The thing is, I'm just not sure if I'm that interested in this particular book, even though I am so interested in Sharon Creech as an author. So I'm gonna put this on the I don't have to read it this year, but I'm definitely still interested in having it on my shelves. Oh, and then we have a book that I was so sad that I hadn't gotten to, and I would love to read it in 2025. That is The Hidden Side of the Moon by Joanna Russ. Also such an iconic cover for me. This is a huge inspiration in my current graphic design interest. So anyway, love this, and I would love to read it. So that's going in the TBR. Next we have another sci-fi. It's called The Cloud People by Robert B. Kelly, and I think this is such a fun book to have, but I'm not dying to read it right now, so this will not be going on the TBR. And then Lilies and Other Stories, another book that I just think is so beautiful aesthetically, and I would really be interested in it, at least cracking it open and reading a few of the stories and seeing how I feel about it. So this is gonna go on the TBR. Next is Relativity by Albert Einstein. And oh yes, I would definitely love to read this, but do I need to read this in 2025? I don't know. I think I'm just interested in it, so I'm gonna put it in the optional shelf. I guess stack. They're stacks, they're not shelves. Then there was The Country of the Pointed Firs and Other Stories by Sarah Orne Jewett, and also absolutely adore this cover. I think it's really striking. But do I need to read this right now? I don't know. I don't think so. Somebody's playing music pretty loud. Now, this next TBR really fell off the rails. I did read some books from it, but I just dealt with things differently than I thought I would. So I was putting together a Depression era TBR because my cat was very sick and he was dying. So I thought that I would want to be in bed, especially hanging out with him and being with him in his final time. And instead, I did read some of the books with him while he was still alive. And I did also spend some more time with him because he got to a point where he was able to enjoy his final days. And so I spent some time outside with him. Excuse me, talking about your dead brother. Shut up. I did get to spend some time outside with him in the garden. So I was doing more of an audiobook thing. And then after his passing, I did not want to be in the house. I didn't want to be inside. I wanted to be doing things and doing things outside. So this was the time period where I read a ton of graphic novels. I read classics and refinished my drawers in my kitchen. I was also reading a bunch of those YA dystopians at that time. Excuse me, can we shut up? All of that to say, I did not follow my TBR very well, and I didn't really predict how I was going to react very well. Instead of like soak in the feelings, it was like do a bunch of things to escape the feelings. So that was my experience, and so a lot of these books went unread. Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. And I'm not sure if I'm feeling like I need to read this because I just kind of got it recently. I got it this year, I think. Maybe earlier than that. I don't think this needs to be on my list. Then there's Undersea City by Frederick Pohl and Jack Williamson. And I tried to read a bit of this. And the beginning starts as like a cadet thing. And I was just a little concerned about actually not being interested in it. I do want to have read this, but I'm just worried that it's not going to be what I want. I'm going to put it in the maybe. I feel like a coward with this next book. I feel like I've just been cowardly. And that's with God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater by Kurt Vonnegut. I don't know. I haven't read any Kurt Vonnegut this year. And he's one of my favorite authors that I've read before. I've read a lot of his work. And I bought so much of his work because I knew I would want to have it. And I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely never find anything. I never find anything by Kurt Vonnegut in any thrift store ever. I really wanted to have read this, or I need to read this. I need to read this next year. The next two are Nancy Drew's that I just thought I would want for comfort. These two. And I don't need to read these. I can read Nancy Drew at my leisure whenever it comes up. So I now have a sticky bun. Oh my god. Al. Al thinks it's really cool and fun to hit the leg of the tripod right now. So anyway, my husband had gone out to the cafe, local cafe, to get some goodies, and he's come back. And so now I have goodies. I read maybe 1 or 2 stories, but I was so out of my mind when I was reading these. Like, I just was not sunk into it, and I felt like my mental state was a disservice to the work. So that's Dubliners by James Joyce. I have never read anything by James Joyce. I want to have read something by James Joyce, and I thought that short stories would be for me, but like I mentioned, I was just in not a great place to like pay attention very well, and that can definitely be a problem for short stories because you kind of have to be like locked in for everything that's happening, otherwise it will just not make sense. So this is going on the 2025 TBR. I also really wanted to start my reading journey with Emily Bronte. I've only ever read Charlotte Bronte. I've never read Emily Bronte. Wuthering Heights. I love how Wuthering Heights opens, but I had no idea what was going on. And so in a similar way, I just was not in a good mental state to pay attention to this work. So this, I don't feel like I need to read this soon, to be perfectly honest. Hey, Clove. Hi. So I'm gonna put this in, I don't need to read this in 2025. Oh my goodness. So then we have a book that I might actually finish before the end of the year. I am enjoying it so deeply. That's Strength to Love by Martin Luther King Jr. So I will be trying to finish this up, but I did not get to it at the time of this TBR. It has extended into my new TBR, even though I didn't plan on that. And anyway, I'm hoping to finish this, so we'll see if I'm slow or if I get distracted by something. Next we have Bedbugs by Ben H. Winters. I'm just kind of interested in it. I'm gonna put this as optional for 2025. African Silences by Peter Matheson. I don't know, my interest in this has just kind of waned quite a bit. So I'm not feeling a call. We have a very active kitten in this corner crawling on boxes and stuff, if you hear rustling. And then super sad true love story. I don't know when I'm gonna get to this, but I'm not really feeling called to it right now. Not going on the TBR. I should also mention, I totally forgot to mention these 2 books. These were DNFs from the Buzzwordathon TBR that I also got rid of. So Polly might be out in my little free library right now, but it's a like young adult-ish, maybe? I'm not even sure. I could relate to it when I was reading it, but I just realized that I didn't want to read that book. The time for me to have read that book has passed. And so I just decided that I didn't need to have it like looming over me as something that I feel like I need to read in the future. So I unhauled it. I DNF'd it and then unhauled it. And the other book that I DNF'd was something that I got from the library, which was The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. I got quite a ways into this book, maybe even like a third to halfway, if not farther than that. I remember I was very in to this book, and I did not like it at all. I mentioned in one of my reading vlogs, I'm reading guys, where did I put my sticky bun? Oh, there it is. Okay, it's on the bookshelf. I really thought maybe Clove just took it and ate it all. We're into my current TBR, and here's the situation. We have 1 month left in the year, and that's December, baby. And the books that I have are I Am Malala, which I might be able to get to, Invisible Man, Things Fall Apart, Arkham's Dream Diary, The Alchemist, The Wise Man's Fear, The Thing with Feathers, Pearl / Gawain, and The Green Knight. Then I had some books that I wanted to reread, which I'm not counting as this, because I have technically already read the books. I'm definitely not going to be able to finish all of those. I mean, I might be able to finish all of them, but I'm not going to. I know myself. So I will be reading I Am Malala, Invisible Man, Things Fall Apart, Arkham's Dream Diary, The Alchemist. I will be reading all of those because that is a TBR video. That is a video idea. The Wise Man's Fear has just... I need to buy my own copy if I'm going to continue to not read it, because it belongs to my sister and I borrowed it so long ago. So I really would like to read that soon. So let me show you what I ended up with. I guess my mandatory reading, but if I say it like that, I'm gonna be inclined to not want to read them at all. For next year, this is the stack of books that I intend to read in 2025. The Loved One, The Symbiotic Planet, Long After Midnight, All in Darkest Children, Silent World, The Hidden Side of the Moon, Lilies and Other Stories, God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater, and Dubliners. So I'm thrilled to have these books in my life, and as like the potentiality for reading them very shortly. I hope you enjoyed this world of potential for this year that just didn't quite happen. These could have been the books that I read this year, but they were not. We'll just continue our little path through time and read them in the future. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And if you enjoyed this video, consider sharing it with a friend who you think would also enjoy it. Consider liking and subscribing. What is the book that you just were dying to have gotten to this year that you just didn't quite get to? What is that book, and are you gonna read it like first thing in January? That's always the thing that I find interesting, is like I can have really wanted to have read something and it'll take me years to get to it again. I feel that way about The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I had read so much of that book last year, and I was like, all right, I better read this by the end of the year. And then I didn't, and I didn't even pick it up once this year. So anyway, let me know. Okay, I will talk to you again soon.